So this boss did receive a change either between the last time I tested it and the very final time it was tested, or even after just the last time it was tested. Unfortunately, they made one of these debuffs the main one that summons and add private aura, so we can no longer go with the strategy I was going to have us go with and that most people were going to have you go with. But the general gist is the boss does 3 mechanics. Yeah, it's private aura now. Phase Blades, which is going to put a debuff on 4 players, and after a certain amount of time, I think it's like 5 seconds, wherever the player is standing, a image is going to spawn, and the player's going to take damage, obviously. He's going to have like a heal DR on them as well. But yeah, 4 players will basically be charged by the boss like Sire Denathrius did in Remornia charges in an order 1, 2, 3, 4. As they are hit, they will spawn an image where they are standing. That's mechanic number 1, spawns an image. Mechanic number 2, which yeah, they also made a private aura, sad, is another debuff that 4 players again will get, and after 5 seconds those 4 players will have a line shot through them from the boss. So from the boss to them, there will be a line that gets blasted through, hitting everything in its path. This mechanic, the line mechanic, will break any images that it hits. That will put a stackable debuff onto the raid. So the more images that are hit, the more damage we are taking from the initial damage break and from the dot after. This is exactly like Taros spikes, if you did Taros. Basically the same mechanic, but instead of the tanks controlling the line, it is the entire raid players, just like the raid players spawn the images. Those are the 2 mechanics. The third mechanic is a AoE that does fall off damage and destroys any remaining images. And is it on heroic too? Yeah. And increases the damage you take from any destroyed images for the next 10 seconds. So basically, if there's any images left when he starts to cast this mechanic that you didn't break with the lines, you're going to take extra damage when they explode. The general idea being that you would want to break all of the images with the lines before you get to the AoE. That's the general idea. Now, the damage increase isn't actually that much anymore, 75%. It used to be 500% on testing, which would mean basically if you broke 1 image, it would be as if you broke 6. And that was extremely punishing. But it also wasn't working on testing. Just the idea of it was punishing, though. So those are his only 3 mechanics. So we're going to see, or the only 3 mechanics that you really have to do anything for. He has a rain of arrows that you dodge, circles on the ground. But we're going to see the actual order and how they come out, because it's the same on heroic and mythic. It is fairly quick. So these are the targets with the phase blades. These are the 4 people. You see the lines going through here. As far as I'm aware, these lines might have changed as well to where you don't even have an arrow to know. I don't know if that is true. But if that's true, that's going to be a problem. The general idea that we are going to go with is not what we're doing here in this video. But the 4 people are effectively going to make a box around a marker, just like any other debuff where you've had to go to specific positions. The 4 people are going to make a box. The only thing that's important with that box is that the person who is going to get hit first by the boss, which in this you can see by whoever has the arrow going from the boss to them. So it is this person, DDZ. You'll see the red arrow goes from the boss to them. So he's actually going to be the first person charged to. That first person has to be on the close side of the box to the boss. So if you have a box here, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first person getting charged has to be over here, so that the boss is not charging through somebody else to get to the first person charged on the back. That's effectively the only thing you have to do. We're just going to be making a box every time this mechanic comes out. The people who are charged will spawn an image. We'll see it here. Boom, 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 boom. It's spawning these little images here, and they will be standing there, pulsing small AoE damage while they're up. It's going to be effectively the same strat on Heroic and Mythic because there's no real reason to change it. You're going to make a box around a marker. The difference on Mythic is that if you are too close to another player, or if you get double hit, basically if two images get spawned within 5 or 6 yards of each other, they will blow up and do massive raid-wide damage, potentially causing you an immediate wipe. So on Mythic, you just can't be within 6 yards of each other. If you stand in the right positions on the box, you won't be anyway. So there's no real reason to change the strategy from Heroic to Mythic. You just make a box around a marker, and that's it. The flow of the fight is going to be image spawn debuffs go out, rain of arrows happens, you dodge. Image spawn debuffs go out again. So you're going to have 8 images up for the first rotation, and this will happen every time. So we had first images, we had the rain of arrows dodge, now we are about to get second images right here. These 4 people, they are also going to go over here. In our raid plan, they're also going to make a box around a raid marker to spawn their images. 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, immediately after those 4 people get hit and their images spawn, the 4 people are going to be targeted with the lines. This is a quick transition. So whoever isn't targeted with this second set of phase blades has to be prepared to get in position with the lines, because those 4 targets are going to go out. And we're dead because somebody put images too close to each other. But there's the 4 people who have the blue arrows would be the lines that are going to shoot out. So let me see if I can get a poll where we didn't get instantly murdered. I believe this was first Mythic testing, so it happened a lot. So we dropped images. This is second images. Okay. The boss is moving back, and the people with the debuffs for the lines have come out. The blue arrow, the Decimate. 1, 2. I don't know where the other ones are. These people need to hit images with their lines. Boom. Lines went out, went through some of the images, put debuff on us. We hit 6 images out of the possible 8. When the images blow up, they start spawning a like defile pool, but it doesn't actually grow when you stand in it. It just grows to a certain radius. Just don't stand in it. And everybody's taking large damage from the dot. And then the rotation is going to repeat with Phase Blades targets, Rain of Arrows dodge, but it's only going to do 1 Phase Blades target. So, oh yeah, you have Rain of Arrows first, Phase Blades, and then you're going to get Decimate lines again. So, boom, immediately after Phase Blades end, the people are targeted with Decimate lines. They need to go break more images. And we have the dot, which on beta was persisting through death, which is interesting, but yeah. So you see we still have a couple of images left. I think there is 3 up. Currently, if this is heroic, this is a 75% damage increase for each one. So that's gonna hurt. It's going to be like we have 5 up instead of 3 when this goes off, and you're taking damage from this going off, fall off damage. So that would probably be a kill. That would just kill us. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire fight. He is going to do 2 Phase Blades, then a line move to clear, then 1 Phase Blades, then a line move to clear, and then the AoE that clears everything that's left. You're effectively just going to rotate around the room, going around the whole place. And you'll see that with this. Now, this was the strategy I had for when it wasn't a private aura, because you could actually know who was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Standing in a line is a little more foolproof than a box as far as knowing where to go, because if you had a 2, you knew you were always going to be second in the line. The idea is just going to slightly change. You're going to, instead of have 1, 2, 3, 4 here, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 around the marker. They're going to drop their things. Everybody's going to move with the Rain of Arrows. You're going to do it again around a marker, wherever the marker is. It may be up there, it may be down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the people with the lines are going to blow them up. You're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, spawn ads, lines, blow them up, and then you stack for the AoE. You might be able to stack closer to the boss. It's not fully clear right now how much damage that's going to do. On the latest testing, it was doing way too much damage, the AoE. Even like the fall off was like nothing. But I do believe they nerfed that since then. So yeah. And that is pretty much the whole fight. You're really just handling where you're placing the images and making sure you break them with lines, and everything on this fight really hurts, so you're using defensives all over the place.
With the Decimate lines, is there like a goal of how many to break? Is it 5? No, there's only 4 lines.
It's not clear currently. So previously, before they made this most recent nerf for the AoE that clears them all, you had to clear every image before this AoE, and there's going to be 12 of them, and you get 2 line sets. So you would either need to use 6 and 6 or 8 and 4 or 7 and 5 if you wanted to. It might have made sense to do 8 and 4, so you can just use a strong healing CD on the 8, a weak one on the 4, and then whatever you need to live the AoE. It might also make sense to do 6 and 6 just to have more balance depending on our healing comp and our healing CDs. We'll have to figure that out a little bit later. We're going to go through healing CDs 2 weeks from now, so we'll figure that out then. But with the nerf to like how much the damage increase is for when he clears them by himself, you may not even need to clear them all before the AoE. Like you may be able to leave 1 or 2 up. In that case, maybe you go like 8 on the first one, 2 on the second one. So you basically have to use no defensives on the second one, and then let him clear it with the AoE, and you can use defensives there. So unfortunately, that didn't answer your question exactly, but basically the answer is it's kind of up in the air currently on strategy.
Makes sense. Don't know everything that we don't know yet.
Yeah. Any other questions? This one is pretty simple. It's just sort of execution factor. Okay. On heroic, you actually can put the images like on top of each other. I believe they didn't change that, right? Yep. So technically on heroic, you could put these very, very close to each other. You can't put them on top of each other because the boss would be charging over the other people who dropped and spawn a bunch of images, because he will spawn an image for every person who is hit with the charge. So even people who don't have the targeted debuff still need to not be in the boss's line. But on heroic, you can put them fairly close together to make them very easy to hit with the lines. On mythic, you have to be 5 yards away, or else they blow up, do a lot of raid-wide damage. That's really the only difference between heroic and mythic. As far as maybe things like defensive planning, all of these abilities kind of hurt on testing, and they actually buffed their damage, and they gave like healing reductions to these. So like if you're targeted by phase blades, you just have a 30% heal reduction for 20 seconds. 30% heal reduction. That kind of sucks. And you're taking a dot, and you're gonna get hit by the when the decimate clears and puts a dot on everybody, you're gonna take that dot as well. So there's quite a few things to defensive. You should definitely have a defensive if you get a phase blades that is going to go right into a decimate. So if we start from the beginning of the fight, the first phase blades happens, but nothing happens after that. So these people don't really need to use a defensive. It's unclear currently if you can get targeted by 2 phase blades in a row. So maybe if you do get targeted by the first one, you just use one anyway, because you know you're not going to get targeted by the second one. But the people who get this second phase blades, you know there's going to be a decimate explosion within like 5 seconds after these drop. These people should use a defensive here, or a defensive on the decimate. But you are definitely going to want to use a defensive there, possibly personal heals, defensives on those people as well. because that explosion does an initial hit of damage and puts a dot for 6 seconds, and you have a 30% DR from the phase blades for 20 seconds, and you have a dot from the phase blades for 20 seconds. The Rain of Arrows never do anything to anybody unless you get hit by them, so just don't get hit by them. You could do this on testing, as I'm doing, popping a defensive and running into the previous pool to help save space. They added a damage reduction or a healing reduction to the pool as well to 50% and increase the damage by a lot. So it may not be possible anymore depending on what class you play. If you're a mage, it might still be possible with Invis or Ice Cold. Might be possible with Turtle or Bop or Bubble, but people who don't have a very strong damage reduction, probably not possible to stay in the pools anymore, and it's probably not worth it anyway because you want all of the images relatively in a known, easy to hit space for the lines. But it's just something we were testing. And then it's unclear how much damage the AoE is going to do. Currently on Heroic, it says, 6 million with fall off damage. On beta, this was like 4.8 million, but the fall off damage would only take it down to like 4.1. And we had health pools of like 5. So this was like an 80% health hit, even with max fall off. It was just killing people, but that, I believe, the fall off has been fixed. If the fall off has been fixed and there is no images up, you probably do not need to defensive this, because nothing actually happens after that for you to take damage. So it's good to know like when the damage patterns actually happen in the fight. If you get a phase blades, you take damage. After a decimate, everyone takes damage, and everyone takes damage on the AoE hit. But other than that, you don't take damage anywhere else unless you stand in a Rain of Arrows. So like the AoE hit just happened, and if there were no images up, so you didn't get a dot from that, it's been 10, 12 seconds, basically 14 seconds until the next phase blades comes out. And in that time, nobody is taking damage. So it may actually not be that important to defensive the AoE if there are no images up. If there are images up, they are going to break, give you a dot, and do 75% more damage. You're probably going to want a defensive for that. But if there's no images up, we may just pop a heal CD, a barrier, a spirit link, whatever, and you may be able to save your personals for if you get a phase blades or a decimate later.